I don't
Kane, it's 1-0. We're fucking down. 13th in the Championship. The takeover happened, as I said it would. People will be... Oh, when have we got Leeds? Now then, people, welcome back to the Just Joe Football Show. Good evening to you all. Please make sure you have smashed a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, of course, get your comments in as well, and if we have time, we will ask them to Ben. And of course, hit the notification bell so you don't miss streams like this in future. Ben is slightly delayed, as you can imagine. He's a very, very busy guy, but rather than have you waiting, I thought I would jump on and tell you what we're going to chat about and then wait for Ben to join us. We did one of these before. It was the same before. The fact that he's giving up his time for this channel, it's good enough for me. Really nice guy as well. So while we wait for Ben, like I said, my thought process is, and again, please do put any names in the chat that you want me to ask about, just to set the agenda. But I'm thinking fullbacks, obviously, Connor Roberts, Ryan Giles, and Ben Johnson at West Ham, of course. Chris Mepham has been linked as well. Santos, which is a player that Ben Jacobs actually brought to the fore through Give Me Sport, who was on loan at Nottingham Forest and got recalled. And I am going to throw a name at him as well that we did discuss on the scouting report. Callum Chambers. We discussed it on the scouting report, and I've seen that Unai Emery has basically said that both Bertrand Traore and Callum Chambers can leave this month. So it's someone that, we discussed before, so we can have a chat with him and see if he's got any sort of information on Callum Chambers. So we'll wait on this one. Luke Thomas, now he's back at Leicester as well. That's a good shout. We can put that in there because obviously he was one that we were linked with in the summer. That might change now. Leeds United might say, "Nah, listen, we can get better than you," which I believe we can as well, if I'm being totally honest. I've seen he's been sent back on loan. He's back at Leicester. They had to get rid of him so they could bring in Ben Brereton Diaz, wasn't it, to be fair? But yeah, he's a Leicester City fan, Oliver, I believe. Nick G says, looking forward to this. Ben is a top guy, very knowledgeable and easy to listen to. Yeah, just throw a name at him and he's away. Danny says, smash a like and subscribe. Yeah, please do that for me. All good in the hood. Justin, I can't lie to you, I'm all good. The heating's been on. It's nice. I'm in T-shirts and shorts. Do you know what I mean? The tan's looking prime and all that sort of jazz. It's all good. Get Traore, I take him. Nah, mate, not for me. He's not better than what we've got. And apparently he's under consideration from Al Ettifaq over in Saudi Arabia anyway. But no mention on who Chambers is linked to, if indeed he is at all. We'll wait and see. Connor Roberts not in the Burnley squad. Listen, he hasn't been around. He was in the FA Cup squad, but again, it wasn't used, right? So, it's interesting. Big up to Auto Better lads as well. Smarty, Gilly, Jay, Luke, and the Irish guy's name escapes me, and I feel really rude. Help me out here. That's really bad. I'm really sorry. Any 10s linked? Do you know what it is, mate? I don't think we're going to go there. I genuinely don't think we're going to go there. Not until the end of the window, and maybe something becomes available. Carl, that's it. Sorry, Carl. Sorry. Imagine that's Carl now. He's like, Carl, you absolute. Yeah. I got them, to be fair, to reel it all off my head without even, was there. Snooty. Just watched the Arsenal debate. That was really enjoyable. Was this on Mogenda's channel? My God. I'm sorry. Like, I was talking to Will, an American fan of Spurs, and he told me that that Romero was world class and Saliba is not as good at it. So basically, Arsenal have good players, but Spurs have some world class players. I don't know. It is what it is. This video's not being cribbed. Definitely not. Yeah, the Roberts thing on Connor Roberts. Yeah, he did say this in his press conference. We will talk after the match. Obviously, Luton take on Burnley at 7:45. I think I'll be watching the game. It's a massive game. Massive game. Nige D says 4 incomings needed. Certainly. Still no sign of Ben. Imagine, do you know, like when you get to, do you know when you go on a blind date or something and you start, I mean, this has never happened, by the way. Let me just say this. Might say, like, has your date arrived yet? You're like, ah, yeah. Shone away. Yeah. Imagine. Yeah, I tried my best, Nigel. I tried my best, mate, but sometimes you can't reason with people. Do you know what I mean? He was throwing out stacks and figures at me and stuff. He actually said before the stream started as well that if we'd have kept Jesse, we'd have stayed up. So this is where we're at. Do you know what I mean? And I went, no. So, yeah, that's where we're at. But maybe the statistical data was all trending in the right direction. But according to Opta, and what's the Leeds fan now who works at Opta, basically said, yeah, we were trending for most unsuccessful passers in Europe's top 5 leagues. Yeah, it was Jamie. I had fun, man. I had fun. Yeah, maybe Steve. Maybe that's why I was like ready to go. Do you know what I mean? I was ready to go from the off. Yeah, still waiting, mate. Still waiting. He will be here. He's probably waylaid on another show, perhaps. He's actually tweeting right now. Chelsea confirm Dujan Richards has officially completed his move from Phoenix Academy. The Jamaican international signed in the summer and trained with the first team in America during Chelsea's pre-season. He joins following his 18th birthday in November. So there you go. He's currently tweeting. He's a busy guy. He's obviously got his finger in the pies when it comes to Chelsea. So we'll wait and see what he has to say about Santos's move, potential move to Leeds United. We've had some fixture changes. Leeds United now takes place versus Norwich on the 24th, and we then have the FA Cup on the 27th. And here we are. He's now here. Mr. Ben Jacobs is with us. Thank you very much, mate. I hope you're doing well. And thanks for coming on, because I know you're a very busy guy.
Hey, Joe. Happy New Year to everybody. And let's hope it's a successful one for Leeds in 2024.
Let's hope, because your team's absolutely romping the league, mate. So it's a successful one for you, right? Leicester City?
I think so. It's going to be very difficult for anybody to catch Leicester, or even if they do, I still fancy Leicester for the top 2. It's been a brilliant season. I think Enzo has been a very exciting appointment, not just because Leicester are winning, but the style that he brings. And we should be well equipped to certainly keep our place in the Premier League should we be successful. I think the gap between Leicester now and Southampton is 13 points. So a few more wins and Leicester will be pretty close to being over the line. But Leeds are doing well too. I think the first half of the season has finished strongly after maybe a bit of an inconsistent start, but 4th place, not too far off Ipswich, so it isn't unthinkable that it will be Leicester 1, Leeds 2. I would take that.
Same here. So would I, mate. Honestly, I'd give my right arm for it right now. But of course, you're here, transfer aficionado. So bringing you on to obviously chat about transfers and Leeds United. There's 2 that I just want to pick up straight away. I know you've just tweeted about a Chelsea player there about a week ago now. I think I might have been Give Me Sport, an article you'd done about a potential move for Santos, who was on loan at Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, Andre Santos, Chelsea player, went on loan to Nottingham Forest, didn't get that many minutes. I think Steve Cooper brought in a late flurry of players and then subsequently departed. It didn't improve under Nuno. Chelsea have brought Santos back. And if there wasn't an injury to Leslie Okwachuku, another Chelsea midfielder, I think Santos would have already been loaned out. But now Chelsea have got a decision to make. There's a real challenge for Chelsea and their loans at the moment. You may have seen David Datre Fofana's on his way to Burnley, but it looked like being Sevilla. And then there was a problem with quotas. There were some issues with registration also on Sevilla's side. And he was previously at Union Berlin. And add to that the fact that there's other Chelsea players such as Ian Maatsen, who's done the opposite, stayed within the Chelsea squad and then been loaned out. There's a big flurry of movement there. And Santos is a possibility. The thing about Chelsea with Santos is that despite a high volume of interest, they don't yet know what they want to do. And in addition to that, minutes are vitals. This can't be a loan that has a maybe about it, because that's ultimately what happened at Nottingham Forest. And that's why maybe a championship club will be better. They sent Cesar Casadei to Leicester.
Yeah.
He's playing regularly. He's doing really well. That's the kind of loan they want. And if Leeds can offer that, it's a realistic possibility. Crystal Palace are another club that are looking. And even Newcastle inquired because they had a historical interest in Santos. They actually wanted to buy the player before Chelsea. But those clubs are tough because they're Premier League, and it might put Santos in the same boat as in Nottingham Forest. So Chelsea don't see Santos as for sale. There'll be no option or obligation. But if Leeds can provide a pitch and Chelsea feel that they've got enough depth within that midfield, there's still a possibility that that one could happen.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Carvalho one. We were interested in Carvalho. I know clubs in the Premier League were, and then he chose Hull because it's a guarantee of minutes, right? And I assume that's what Chelsea want for Santos. You tweeted out earlier on about some news from Aston Villa as well. The guy Traore, but the one that interests me because we spoke about it on my channel previously. Callum Chambers. Now I know there's not been any links up to this point, but the fact that Chambers is available. Has that been confirmed by Emery, did you say?
Yeah, Unai Emery has confirmed that both of those players that you mentioned are free to go. So it's going to be relatively interesting to see now whether or not anything can be resolved in the final 2 weeks of the window. With Traore, there's Saudi Arabian interest in Al Ittifaq, but there's budgetary issues for them, and their quota would probably require, in terms of space for foreigners, Jordan Henderson to leave before anything could be possible there. With Callum Chambers, my understanding is that his preference would be to stay within England. So I don't think many foreign suitors are going to stand too much of an opportunity there. I haven't seen any links with Leeds. I'm certainly not aware of that. There may be others that are making those links, but I'm not familiar with anyone from talking to people within my own personal Leeds network that suggests that they're going to potentially make a move for him. And maybe the reason for that, you'll know better than me, Joe, as will people listening, but Chambers is versatile, but centre-back, right-back predominantly. So I think Leeds' priority is left-back at this point, and that might be why they wouldn't consider a player like Chambers.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And just while we're on left back as well, I've noticed that Luke Thomas has recently returned back to your club, Leicester. Obviously, he was on loan at Sheffield United. They've now picked up Ben Brereton Diaz, and he's been returned back to Leicester. Leeds did hold an interest in the summer. Do you think that's something that could be re-exercised from Leeds' perspective?
Yeah, I'll have to look into this one in a little bit of detail, because it will also depend on any minutes because of the rules about how many clubs you can play for. So obviously weekend can be very telling, because I've not made an inquiry to Leicester about what their plans are yet for Luke Thomas, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a fast moving window. You're absolutely right in what you say, that Leeds were really intent on Luke Thomas. He was far more than just a concrete target, and they felt that they could get it over the line, but they were pipped to it at the last minute. And now we need to understand whether or not Leicester are going to reintegrate him, which would stop him, because you can only play for those two clubs during the season. So if at the weekend we find he's in the squad and he comes on and so on, then we know that saga's over. But I would suspect that Leicester will assess the player internally, speak to the player, and then see whether he is happy to go out on loan, and we won't see any game time at his parent club. And that could open a window of possibility for Leeds for sure. When you've gone to a club and then you're asked to come back, then sometimes for personal reasons, you don't want to go straight out again because you feel a bit like a commodity, or you feel that you did enough because he ultimately was playing in the Premier League and it's a decision of mutual consent. So maybe he feels like there's an opportunity now to try and establish himself in the Leicester team in the second half of the season. I don't know yet, to be perfectly honest with you, because I've not put in any calls to Leicester on him. So this is going to be one to watch in the next few days, and I'll certainly update you. But what we can confirm right now is that Luke Thomas was very high on the list that Leeds wanted in the summer. Unfortunately, Sheffield United beat Leeds to it. You can understand why, because ultimately it's Premier League versus Championship. And the thing also about Luke Thomas is that he still, I think, was involved in 12 of their Premier League games. They weren't all starts, but he got a fair amount of minutes at Sheffield United. And now we have to wait and see, because not last season where he was more out of favour and he only played or appeared in about half the Premier League games, but 2021, 2022 for Leicester, Luke Thomas was really in favour. He was about 20 years of age. He might even have still only been a teenager. He played in 20 plus Premier League games. He played in 30 plus matches in all competitions. And he was absolutely brilliant. And you thought to yourself, this is a player that's really going to break on the scene. He was part of the England under-21 team that won the European Championships last year. He obviously won the FA Cup and the Community Shield with Leicester. So everything implied that he was going to be a top left back. In that same sort of category of, I guess, a player like Lewis Hall, who moved from Chelsea to Newcastle. On the right-hand side, Tino Livramento, the same kind of qualities, very enterprising, very confident on the ball, quite prepared to get forwards, and high intelligence. But in that 2022-2023 season for Leicester, he fell out of favour. And as the mood dropped at Leicester, he wasn't able to, even in bad form, really force his way in. And I think last season he took a step backwards. So it'll be very interesting now to see where Leicester rate him. Because if you're Leeds, you might consider not just should it be possible alone, but you might try and get an option built in there. So then if you get promoted and it all works out, that's the kind of player that then you don't have to go and try and battle for in the summer. You can sort of kill two birds with one stone, do a short-term loan, give yourself the opportunity to sign him permanently. But that's only going to happen if Leicester make the decision that he's surplus to requirements. And that's the question mark that exists at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair enough. And there's also, I guess, a sense, although that we think Leicester are going to win the league, they might think, well, do we really want to loan him to a direct rival or someone that's at least competing at the top of the league potentially? Some other players, mate, a couple at Bournemouth, to be honest. Someone just asked in the comments as well. Obviously, we've been linked loosely to Chris Mepham recently, and there's been a chat about David Brooks as well, and I know Southampton hold an interest there. Do you know what? And even Kiefer Moore as well. There's three players there at Bournemouth. I think maybe Sunderland and Cardiff. So, do you have any sort of knowledge of them at Bournemouth?
Yeah, I think that Brooks is a tough one. Very well liked at Bournemouth. Fantastic character. Great to see him back playing football. Good signing if you can get it. But I feel of the three, that's the most difficult one. Whereas with Mepham, he's exploring options. And Bournemouth are definitely open to letting him go. So that is not going to be difficult on the club side to get done with Bournemouth. It's just about preference. And I am actually told that that is a concrete possibility as far as Leeds are concerned. So this could be one that actually grows legs in the coming weeks. Kiefer Moore, on the other hand, again, surplus to requirements. Not sure that Leeds are sort of front of queue there at this stage. It's such an unpredictable window because if you don't get one target, you kind of change your tune. But I'm told as far as strikers are concerned that Leeds are relatively confident at the moment that they can move in this window, but if they don't, the summer's okay as well. And what they don't want to do is sort of shoot their financial load, if you like, get promoted, and then find that they bought too many mid-season. Because if Leeds get promoted, you've got players coming back as well that are on these kind of relegation clauses with the opportunity to bring them back. You got more money. Maybe you go for a higher caliber of player. I've mentioned before, Ben Brereton Diaz is still there on the Leeds list of targets. They were pipped to him by Villarreal. It didn't work out. He's been loaned back to Sheffield United. But Sheffield United, I think, most think, don't have to be a rocket scientist to say this, very likely to go down. And Leeds with a good opportunity to come up. So suddenly you could be in a position where if he's available in the summer market, that becomes a priority. And then maybe you don't want to take the squad space, the wage space, and so on with somebody like Kiefer Moore. My concern with Kiefer Moore would also be, as I said a moment ago, he's just not played that much football. So Moore and Mepham of the two, Mepham, I think, is a more viable possibility for Leeds because there is something to these links for sure from what I'm told. Moore, I haven't heard as much on as far as Leeds are concerned. It was actually Plymouth, I was told, that were going for him. And Sunderland were in the mix as well. So those two could be one to watch. I know West Brom have sent scouts to watch the player as well. So there's a bit of a championship battle there going on. But I don't think Leeds would really lose much if they didn't sign the player, because I'm a bit underwhelmed. You have to go back to his Cardiff days when he was scoring a goal every 2 games, but that was still only 1 season. And if you go back before that, then there was Barnsley, good sort of goal ratio, 1 in 2 games. But again, that was predominantly in League One. There was 1 season, I believe, in the Championship. But generally, I look at more, and what you get is an available player, not that expensive, who's got a ridiculous amount of Championship experience, because at 31, every other season, he's basically been in the Championship. He moves from, I think it was Dorchester Town. Yeovil had a season in the Championship. Then he actually drops all the way down to the National League and then starts coming back up. And after his little loan spell at Torquay after Forest Green, it was Ipswich Championship. It was Barnsley Championship again, at least I think for 1 season of the 2 or 3 that he was there. It was Wigan Championship. It was Cardiff Championship. It was Bournemouth Championship into Premier League. And I look at the numbers in the Championship, and it's only really that 1 season in Cardiff where you think, yes, we would take him on that form. Everything else, I'm sort of seeing 5 goals, 7 goals, 10 goals, 9 goals. And I just don't think that's what Leeds are looking for at this stage. Because if you halve that, because he'd only be coming in for half a season, it's 4 or 5 goals. I don't think it's enough to make the difference to get Leeds from playoffs to automatic. And in addition to that, he's not young either. So that move doesn't make a lot of sense to me for Leeds United, unless it's peanuts wages, it's no fee, and it's just a depth player, which you'll again know better than me, Joe. Maybe that's what you feel Leeds need.
Yeah, maybe not. I think it was more so like there was a lot of talk, the fans not really feeling Bamford anymore, but then Bamford started to hit a little bit of form, and so it sounds like a hard pass anyway on that one. The ones that have been carrying the most pull, I guess, with reports from the likes of Phil Hay and stuff, has been Connor Roberts at Burnley, who's again not in the squad tonight for their game against Luton. You've got Ryan Giles at Luton, who's on the bench, but he's not getting much game time. And then we've also been linked to Ben Johnson at West Ham, who plays most recently against Brighton. So I think it looks like Leeds United are definitely closer to a fullback acquisition. I know it's an area we're definitely trying to get bodies in. What have you heard, and what are your thoughts on them 3?
Yeah, I think it shows you that Leeds mean business, and I think it shows you that they're looking to move in the market. Whenever you get this volume of links, and many of them are genuinely credible, you start to feel that they will pick one, maybe even 2. And the focus at the moment, I think, is going to be on Ben Johnson, and that's likely to be a loan. He's at West Ham, and I think the reason why Leeds like him so much, from what I'm told, is that he can play on both sides, either side of a back 4, and he's very composed on the ball. He began his career as a midfielder, and that gives you a little bit of a different perspective. So he's come through the West Ham Academy. He's made something in the region of 100 appearances, I think, at different levels of West Ham. But now he's fallen down the pecking order. And I think this one might be a very viable possibility as far as Leeds are concerned. Let's not forget that last summer we were talking about Luke Thomas, another player that was also part of England's under-21 squad that won the European Championships. And in that European Championships, they got all the way through to the final without conceding a goal. So this shows you that Leeds could get a real bargain out of this. And that, I think, is why it would probably only be a temporary deal. But that's the one that I would be watching at this point. I think the other of the names that you mentioned is potentially Connor Roberts. I think he's under relatively strong consideration at this point. And Vincent Kompany, at least behind closed doors, regardless of what's said in public, is willing to sell permanently there. So that might not even be a loan. I think the fee would be under 5 million. So Leeds may feel that that's within their capability as well. Connor Roberts, I'm told, is open to the move. He sees himself as a Premier League player. And what's more likely, Leeds in the Premier League next season or Burnley in the Premier League next season? Maybe the most likely scenario is 1, Leeds promotion, 2, Leeds and Burnley in the Championship next season, 3, Burnley in the Championship, Burnley in the Premier League, Leeds in the Championship. So maybe the player thinks that this is a blessing in disguise, drop down, and in 6 months' time, he'll have actually been able to move up. The, again, only thing about Roberts is he can be versatile, but his preference and his experience is more on the right side of defence. So does that mean that Leeds are going to get 2, or can they find a fullback that can play on both sides? And this is why, for example, Newcastle went for Livramento from Southampton, because they know he's predominantly right-sided and they've got Trippier there, but they also know that he has played a few games and is willing to convert to the left side. So then you don't need to bring in 2. You take 1 who's young enough to be developed and young enough to be used on both sides. But I think Johnson and Roberts, of the names that you mentioned, feel like the most likely. But I think Leeds are just busy at the moment, which is probably quite reassuring to the fans that are listening.
Yeah, for sure. And it's quite interesting. You mentioned Roberts, Johnson, and we were also looking at Nico Williams, but that's not going to happen, obviously, because Forest want to keep him around. But he also can play on both sides. So just hearing you say that makes me think maybe we do just get the 1. It'll be interesting. Just before I let you go, Ben, in terms of outgoings, obviously there's the Willie Gnonto stuff. Somerville, I'm not concerned as a Leeds fan. I think that would be a summer move, if anything. If we get promoted, maybe we can keep hold of him. Archie Gray's linked to a number of clubs as well recently. Do you know anything at all about any potential outgoings at Leeds?
Well, with Gray, I think links, for example, with Manchester United, which have come out in the last few hours, are way too premature because Jim Ratcliffe isn't even in yet. So they haven't massively decided what direction they're going to go in. But that's a compliment to the player. And Leeds ultimately are aware that these type of names are going to attract interest, particularly summer 2024. But there's no sort of urgent concern about losing him. And as you rightly say, if Leeds get promoted, they'll be in a completely different position. So this is why the transfer market is always unpredictable. Sometimes I don't think fans see it, but Leeds fans can understand it very clearly now because you look where the club is, and anyone with a brain knows that Leeds getting promoted in the summer changes everything. Players that have gone out that can come back that had those relegation clauses, and younger talents or people like Somerville and Gnonto who, if they stay in the Championship, it's one scenario. If they get promoted, it's another scenario. And therefore, it's not sitting on the fence. It's just spelling out the reality that nothing is going to resolve itself now. We're probably going to have to wait for March and April before anything concrete comes, at least as far as Gray is concerned. With Gnonto, I don't deny that the Everton interest is still there, because it is. But what I would say is that Daniel Farke and Gnonto drew a line under the whole saga over the summer. And now I think that Leeds have got all of the control over this situation. So they're not going to be pressured into doing anything with Willie Gnonto. He's not necessarily played in as many matches as he would have liked necessarily, or if he has played in games, 20 odd appearances. So it's not like he hasn't been involved, but he perhaps hasn't contributed in the way that Leeds would have hoped. If you consider that in the Premier League, he had, I think, 30 odd games in all competitions in the season that Leeds went down. And I think he chipped in with 4 goals. This season, I think he's played only 14, 15 times in the Championship, and he's only scored once. And nobody's saying that at 20 years of age, he has to rediscover the form he had at Zurich, where he was scoring 7, 8, 9, 10 goals. But the output, given he's dropped down a level, feels underwhelming. And that may lend itself towards some people saying, maybe Leeds can cash in. But the irony of that is you don't cash in as much if the player is showing this kind of form. So it's true that, for example, West Ham and Everton are aware of Gnonto, but Leeds feel like because they settled his future over the summer, a U-turn on that position would have to be entirely on the club's terms. And at the moment, I'm still told, because he's only 20 years of age, they don't want to sell at this point, because regardless of this season, the high ceiling is still there. So I've been told to downplay by many sources the possibility that Leeds will budge, because it sets the wrong message. And if you budge on Gnonto, then what does Somerville think? Because the big difference between the two, I'm told, is that over the course of the summer, there was all kinds of talk about Somerville. Was there a clause? Wasn't there a clause? What were the legalities around it? And he just got his head down. And from what I'm told, Leeds fans, again, may have more context than I do. I don't claim to be an expert, but from what I'm told, he was a model professional and he relished the opportunity. And so, by the way, did Tyler Adams, even though he ended up departing. But those two relished the opportunity, if they ended up at Leeds, of helping Leeds, because they know it's a massive club, great fan base, and there's still that giant, in inverted commas, or sleeping giant, whatever you want to call it, status around Leeds United. And players know this. And yet Adams left. It was unfortunate. The fact that he was injured was too, but it still didn't stop him going about it the right way. And Leeds respect him for that. And it's the same with Somerville. And now the point I made about Gnonto is that he's gone down a division and his numbers have gone down. Somerville's gone down a division and his numbers have gone sky high, from I think 30 odd appearances and only 3 or 4 Premier League goals to 20 plus appearances. And I think it's 12 goals in the Championship. And he's got more freedom. He's enjoying playing under Daniel Farke. And therefore, it's going to be very, very difficult for anyone to persuade him to move mid-season. Villa's the only one to be a little bit worried about, because they're building great things. They might have Champions League football. You've got the Unai Emery factor as well. Yeah. So a player's head can be turned. But I just think that now 49ers Enterprises are in. And after a summer where they sort of either had to sell or they had to accommodate players that had a mechanism to leave, and they had to brace themselves for being back down in the Championship. Mid-season, I think Leeds can stave off any decisions. I don't think they're going to be forced into anything. So it really wouldn't surprise me if Somerville is incentivized to go and get another 12 goals, go and get Leeds above Ipswich into second place. And then why leave? And I think if he does that, and then Villa come calling because they've got Champions League football, then Leeds fans, Leeds hierarchy will be a bit more understanding, because they'll appreciate the loyalty. They'll know the player's taken his time. And on top of that, you can never blame a player, even if he could play Premier League with Leeds, for saying Champions League. You just can't help that. We had a player at Leicester, Wesley Fofana, unfortunately horrible injuries. But again, Leicester were doing fine. Leicester were in the mix for Europe, but he left because it was Chelsea, and there's just the pull of that. So you accept that. And one day, hopefully, Leeds will be back to having that, where big club and Champions League. But for now, there's always that danger. But I think that Somerville's attitude is first rate. And that's the difference with Gnonto last summer compared to Somerville now. He's not, from what I'm told, the type of player to strop and throw his toys out of the pram. So that means that Leeds can be quite calm about the situation. So I'd keep half an eye on Villa for some kind of move in 2024, because they genuinely like the player. But I think Leeds can be calm about whatever happens, because if anyone exits from these type of top level names or young stars that they can cash in on, then it's going to be on Leeds' terms. Whereas if it was last summer and we were having the same conversation, I'd have been saying more, I'm not so sure it's only a club decision. It's a relegation decision. It's a new ownership decision. It's a new manager decision. It's a financial decision. It's everything combining. And some players are going to look at the club before a ball's kicked and just say, I want out, whether temporarily or permanently. But now I think that Somerville is settled. And because he's doing so well in terms of his output, I really think that there's a strong possibility that he at worst sees the season out.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear, to be honest. And I think, after my initial, thoughts about the 49ers, I do think, Leeds United are definitely in safe hands now with this new ownership, and hopefully it leads to promotion back to the Premier League. Just before I let you go, Banks, I know you've got to shoot. I know you're busy. Do you expect Leeds to be very active then, incomings and not many outgoings at all, really?
Yeah, I think we might see an outgoing, I should say, and then we might see 1 to 2 come in, which is very active because there's only obviously a small amount of time in this window. But I'd be very surprised if Leeds don't get a fullback, and it's very possible that they bring in 2, whether that's left side, right side, or whether that's a fullback and then 1 other. They might surprise me, and the other might be a striker. We've discussed Kiefer Moore, but that's the kind of move that makes less sense to me. At least him specifically. I think there's other names out there that Leeds can get that maybe will be better, and that could be an Andre Santos type player to slot into central midfield, which would make a lot of sense to me as well. So Leeds, I think, can be quite excited by the weeks ahead because they will strengthen. And they have to, because one player we've not mentioned is obviously Luke, who's gone off to Borough, and great servant for the club. And because the contract expires at the same point as his loan ends, that's as good as the club, or it's not even as good as the club. It's definitive from the club saying that his time is up. So this isn't only about can Leeds find somebody and will they sign? This is about they've already lost. So they need to sign. And that's why I'm relatively confident that we will see good business from Leeds in the days and the weeks that follow. And it's important as well because, you know, you look at what's coming for Leeds and it's a nice run of fixtures at this point to really go on a run of which they've already started. The away loss at West Brom and the defeat that they suffered away at Preston as well, which was obviously unfortunate because Melio was sent off in that game. It was frustrating because at that point you're thinking Leeds are going to be in the early to mid 50s and they're going to stay within touching distance of Ipswich. And unfortunately, you lose that game to Preston off the back of absolutely battering Ipswich to the point where you think Ipswich are not coming back from this. It's mentally devastating. And Leeds are just going to catapult themselves onto a run now. And then it will be Leeds and Leicester, which is who everyone expected to come up, I think. Some might say Southampton, but you know what I mean. And then you follow that up with Preston and you're like, oh. And then you go and lose away at West Brom and you're like, oh, here we go again. 1 step forwards, 2 steps back. But then good win against Birmingham, 3 goals, don't concede. Good win against Peterborough. They're expected to win that game. But again, 3 goals, don't concede. So now go on the road in the Championship. Like they did away at, I think it was Blackburn, 1, kept a clean sheet. Like they did away at Leicester, 1, kept a clean sheet. Go away and beat Cardiff and then get revenge against Preston. And then you got a home game against Norwich. Beat Plymouth in the FA Cup, which can just create a bit of extra financial incentive. Get to the 5th round. That's fun. And then you suddenly get into February and you think, well, even Bristol City and Rotherham and away at, I think it might be Swansea. My photographic memory is only semi-photographic. So I could be getting these in the wrong order. But anyway, they're all winnable. So then you can get into late Feb when things get a little bit harder because you got to play Leicester at home. And I think that by that back end of the season, by the time like Middlesbrough come, they might be up there, and also Southampton on the last game of the season. So it's about trying to jump ahead early in this run to make sure that in that stretch, there's not much catching up to do, or even though it's a bit ambitious, there's a little bit of a cushion. So they need to now go on this run, and a new signing can galvanise that, and Somerville can galvanise that, and Gnonto might end up being very important as well. But I do feel like because of this stop-start last few games, brilliant against Ipswich, annoying and frustrating because of the sending off against Preston, disappointing at West Brom, decent against Birmingham, and obviously Peterborough in the Cup. Now they've got to back that up. Go and win 3-0 at Cardiff, go and win 3-0 over Preston, and then suddenly you're on that kind of run like my team Leicester had to start the season. And then by the end of February, there's no reason why Leeds can't be well within touching distance of Ipswich. So that's my expectation. And I think they know that they need a bit more depth to do that. And that's why I think that between now and the end of the window, we'll be quite busy.
Great stuff. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ben. And listen, everyone in the chat's been very complimentary as well. You've already given me more time than you said you could. I know you're a busy fella, so I will let you drop off now, Ben. Enjoy your weekend, my man, and thanks for coming on again, pal.
Yeah, pleasure. Always great engaging with the Leeds fans. Good luck for the rest of the season and the rest of the window, and we'll speak soon.
Bye-bye. See you
Cheers.
later, Ben. Thank you. There we go. There's Ben Jacobs. Thank you. Yeah, again, sending thanks for Ben for coming on. Some interesting bits in there. Not least the Tyler Adams thing. I was like, da, da, da. But listen, when Ben gets going, I didn't want to interrupt and say no. He was also a bit of a snake. Like I say, sometimes we know more than what he does. He doesn't have his finger on the pulse at Leeds United like we do 24/7. But yeah, I just love being able to speak to Ben because you can just give him a topic and he's away. I thought it was quite interesting. He mentioned the striker and maybe Leeds United potentially having a little dip and having a little look potentially. But also think that could be something they could address in the summer. And I guess as a fan right now, I would rather address it in the summer. And maybe that's because Bamford's done well in the last 2 games and I'm getting ahead of myself. Prior to that, I'm going, let's get a striker in. But is there a case of looking at it and saying, if we're going to play Bamford up top, you've got Mateo Judge, you've got Pirro as well, is it worth saving for the summer in the hope that you do get promoted, so that you do spend big? Because let's be honest, if we get promoted, we do need a 9. We do need a 9. We need a 9 that scores goals, that isn't a 1 in 4 man, which Paddy can be. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I'm a lot more positive hearing Ben speak as well. I think Leeds United will be active behind the scenes. We know that anyway. Didn't really touch on Giles, but Connor Roberts, Ben Johnson. I think Connor Roberts is, for me, probably the easier one to do, but Ben Johnson seems to be one. The only reservation I have is we might only get one, because if you think, right, so if everybody's fit, and you don't have to agree with this, I'm not saying that I agree with it. I'm not saying I agree with it. But if everybody is fit, so you have Paul Byram, and on the right side, you've got Gray, Shackleton. If you then bring in Ben Johnson, who can play both sides, do they then need to go and get another? Now, I don't agree with it. I think they do. But the club might look at it like that. Do you know what I mean? So definitely one to think about. Because if you think about who they've been linked with, we really like Nico Williams. Clearly. And we've tried, and Forest have said no. Ben Johnson could be the one below that, because he can also play on both sides. He'll start right back. This is the thing. I think for me, the right back is the most important. They will want a starting right back, but they will know that if we have a breakdown from Firpo or Byram, that then Ben Johnson can go to left back, let's say, and Gray can come off the bench and go back in at right back. So that's my thoughts on that, if I'm being totally honest. So yeah, and like I say, the Luke Thomas one as well. Yeah, and look, we touched on it. We were interested in the summer. We know that, but I'm not too sure that Leeds will probably want to go back there. And I would say as well, for me, Ben Johnson and Connor Roberts are a level above. Maybe I'm wrong to say that, but potentially a level above. And we do have to think about the fact that would they be willing to sell to a direct rival as well? That is something that we need to think about. He did mention Roberts when he was talking about Connor Roberts as well. He mentioned about buying him and him being cheap. I don't mind it. But I prefer a loan. To be honest. We'll have to wait and see. But I would prefer a loan. I think for me, was it Jer I was talking to earlier? Where did I hear it? I've listened to so many podcasts as well today. Was it Phil Hay one, or could it have been The inside Ellen Road. I just remember being told, and I think it might have been Jer off air, that I can't remember who said it now. That's doing me head in. I've got a terrible memory. But the 49ers do have a shitload of money set aside for if we do get promoted to basically overhaul this squad. And it needs it, if we're being totally honest. From back to front, you know, we need, there's no Barry Bannon chat, Damar. I'm not having it. I seen you putting that. I thought, I'm not putting that to Ben. There's not a chance we're after Barry Bannon. He's about 90, you know? Not a chance. I mean, do I rate him? I actually like him as a player, but not for Leeds United, obviously. But no thanks. Definitely not. But yeah. Anyway, I think we'll leave it there. That was very, very fun. And loads of information in there as well. And tomorrow, of course, we can creative player. They're looking at as a shot. Where have you heard this? Where have you heard this? Is it on Wacko, Damar? Is it on Wacko? No, but listen, loads of us to discuss and think about there. I might do a preview later on tonight for Cardiff away tomorrow. So watch this space, put your notifications on. We'll have to wait and see. And if not, like I say, I'll probably do one first thing, or we can just wait for the watch along, which of course starts at 2 o'clock because we play at 3 o'clock tomorrow. So make sure you tuned into that. Thanks as always for watching the Just Joe Football Show. Smash a like on your way out. Enjoy your Friday evening, and I'll see you in a bit, folks. Oh, let me just check. Did I miss out? No, I didn't miss out. Great stuff. There we go. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening. Peace out, folks.